Hello and welcome to the CEO Show. I'm your host, Nick Vidya, and today we have as our guest the much lauded Wharton professor Jonah Berger, who is one of the world's foremost authorities on viral marketing. Jonah studies social epidemics, or why some products, ideas, and behaviors catch on to become popular while others fail. He's also a sought-after consultant by large and small corporations alike in support of their marketing programs. So let us go over to Jonah to talk to him about the scientific principles that explain and predict the viral behavior. Jonah, welcome to the show.
Jonah, your book, Contagious, that has got some great information. But what I wanted to really get into was, first of all, really define what people's expectations should be from viral marketing. Really what happens is when we think of viral marketing as an average person, you think of Charlie Bit My Finger, you think of Blendtec, you think of Dove campaign, or some of these Devil Child, the recent one, 4 million hits within a single day. But that's like saying, I want to be Steve Jobs.
I think viral marketing is a lot of fun, but the big goal is to figure out how to turn customers into advocates. So whether you're a small business or a large business, whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit, whether you're B2C or B2B, we're all trying to figure out how to grow our businesses, how to build our customer base and do better than we've done before. And so the key is not necessarily 10 million views. While most businesses would be really excited if they had a video that got 10 million views, the goal is really 10 to 20% new customers. And so the question is, how can we use the science of word of mouth and the science behind why things go viral to get things shared? Whether they get 10 million views or not, that's not the most important question, but how can we get each customer that comes into contact with us, each business that works with us, more likely to pass our ideas on, more likely to recommend us to someone else, and how can we use that to grow what we're doing more effectively?
Yeah, that is exactly one of the things I was thinking about, because the moment we think of viral marketing, we think of those examples. And it's like saying, hey, do you want to be Steve Jobs like? I mean, Steve Jobs did these things. He was nasty and, he was aggressive. So let's be nasty and aggressive, and that'll make us good CEOs. I don't think so. So you're right on that. Now, the other thing is, when we think of viral, especially generic terms, it's the entire population. If I'm on Facebook, I'm not a surgeon, but if I were a surgeon, I won't have too many surgeon friends on my Facebook. A lot of people. So if I got a video about surgery, I'm probably not going to share it on Facebook because, it doesn't matter to everybody. Does that fact make a difference that, you're reaching out to the general masses, not to a segment? So when you decide, when you talked about, my customers, they're not your typical Facebook users or perhaps YouTube users. So how does that work?
Right. Good question. First, let's think about how much word of mouth is online, because when we think about viral marketing, we think about word of mouth, we tend to think online. We tend to think things like Facebook or things like Twitter. If you look at the data, if you had to guess what percent of word of mouth is online, you might guess 50%, maybe 60%. The number is actually 7. Only 7% of word of mouth is online. And so online's important, but it's not the only channel that's important.
That is incredible. I had no idea. 7%?
Yeah, 7%. And sometimes people say, oh, but everyone's on their devices today. Well, yeah, sometimes. By some estimates, we're on our devices even 2 or 3 hours a day. But take away sleep and think about how many more hours are left. And so people spend a lot more time talking face to face, whether it's with colleagues at lunch or grabbing drinks with friends after work, having breakfast with your family. Those are really the occasions where word of mouth spreads. And so that's not to say online isn't important. That's not to say, hey, you don't need to think about online. But what it does suggest is thinking less about the technology and more about the psychology. Because whether you're online or offline, whether you're using, trying to get people to share things on Facebook or Twitter, regardless of which channel you're using, you have to understand why people share in the first place. If you look on Facebook, for example, there are many brands that have 10 times the number of friends or connections as other brands, yet they get half the amount of engagement that those brands do. Very few people share their content. Very few people click on their content. And so the question is not how many connections do I have? It's are people really engaging with my stuff? And so to your point about the surgeon, I very much agree. Say you're a surgeon, you don't necessarily need to have a Facebook page with lots of friends. You need to figure out how you can use your existing customers to help you draw in new business by passing on the good things that you're doing.
This is very interesting and extremely important because, as you've just said, and you obviously live with it, it's important to define your outcome variables. It's important to define what do you really want out of it. It's great to have Charlie bit my finger, but what do I want from my business? And then look back. So are you saying that viral marketing, the way average person understands, is nothing but old wine in a new bottle? One last question.
Yeah.
It seems to be that crazy is the name of the game. I don't think so. I wanted to get a sense. Do you think crazy is the name of the game, or we are just seeing the tip of the iceberg?
I think the question is not about how you can get attention, but how you can hold attention, and you can use that attention to drive some outcome like sales. So it's easy to get people's attention, right? If I wanted to flap my arms like a bird, right, everyone would see that and they'd look to see what I was doing. Would that help me sell more copies of my book? Would that help people be more likely to adopt my ideas? Probably not. I'd have stolen some of their attention, but it wouldn't be very useful. It wouldn't help them in any way, and so it wouldn't help me in the long term. And so what I like to talk about in the book is how you can use stories as a vessel or a carrier of information. So take Blendtec, for example. It's amazing to see an iPhone in a blender. Amazing, remarkable. You might even say crazy. Who would have thought? But at the end of that video, you can't watch a blender cut an iPhone to shreds without realizing something about the blender. It's got to be a really tough blender to be able to cut an iPhone into dust. And so at the end of that video, you walk away going, that was a lot of fun, but also that's a really remarkable product that's very tough. And indeed, it's a $400 blender. It's in your local Jamba Juice or other smoothie shops. They want people to know how tough they are. And so it's not just a story or a narrative. It's a vessel or a carrier of information. It brings that attribute along for the ride. It's what I call a Trojan horse story. Right? Thinking back to the Greeks versus Trojans, they build that wooden horse hide inside. Good stories or good content is like that. Sure, there's a candy shell, and that candy shell may seem crazy or get people's attention, but at the end of the day, it carries along a message for the ride. Because if all you're doing is getting attention, but you're not reminding the consumer who you are or why they should purchase from you, it's not going to be very effective. You have to both get their attention, but then hold their attention and give them a message or a takeaway that will help you at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Wonderful talking with you, Jana. This is very insightful, and I hope it will change people's perceptions about viral marketing, because it's very important to see the truth behind what's really going on in the buzz in the marketplace. So
indeed. Thank you so much for having me.